FOSIL Education and School Libraries is a podcast that aims to encourage you to develop your understanding of the value of school libraries, help you engage with content on the FOSIL Group website, introduce you to people who are using FOSIL, and most of all, just have a conversation about the role of school librarians within education. Good morning, Darryl. I hope you're well. Half term at last, thankfully. How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad at all, thanks. Lots going on.
Good, good. Now, I
Mm.
think we want to be talking something about your book that you've just managed to get sorted. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I've got a couple of other um, interesting developments to share,
Fair enough.
and if it's okay with you, yeah, the book is very exciting and would be a good place to end today, I think, if possible.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Super.
Go on then. Give me some updates.
So the first one is I'll send a link. I'll send you a link to this to put into the notes. Um, but last time we spoke, I was writing two articles with Lee FitzGerald, who is the editor of Access, which is the professional journal of the Australian School Library Association.
Yeah.
And Lee's also a lecturer at Charles Sturt University on the Masters in Education Teacher Librarianship program.
Right.
Uh, so I have written the first of the two articles with her. The first, it's called Rediscovering the Promise of Freedom Through Inquiry.
Yeah.
So the first article was aimed at principals, senior leaders, and classroom-based colleagues. So that one has already been published, and I have put that up on the FOSIL Group website. So I'll send a link through for that.
And actually, that one, although we're coming to the end of October, I think that one is my article of the month on my website. So if people want to read it and discuss it a bit more,
Mm.
there's an opportunity there too. So yeah, lots of places for it to be read, thankfully.
Yeah, so I just mentioned that one because Lee and I have just finished part two, and part two is aimed at library-based teachers rather than classroom-based teachers.
So that'll be interesting.
Uh, so I was quite pleased with how that one came together. And so that is being prepared for publication. So by the time we next talk, that will be available, and I'll add it to the FOSIL Group site. So that was just to remind people of part one, and that part two will be appearing fairly soon. So
So can I just jump in and ask you what the difference is? So having just written those two, the first one is educators who are in the or librarians that are in the classroom, sort of teacher
no,
librarians.
no. So
Okay.
the first one is for classroom teachers, so
Okay.
subject specialists.
Okay.
And the second one is for teacher librarians who are librarians.
Okay. So was it a obviously it's a different perspective. Did you find it easy to write from an education teacher perspective about around this? It's sort of it's taken a little bit of a turn, hasn't it, to what we normally consider writing, because most of the stuff that I know that I write is for school librarians. So did you find it different or difficult to write?
No, because it was actually very interesting because I was thinking the other day, well, actually, it was in response to the question that you asked me about a presentation to librarians with possibly some teachers present.
Yeah.
And actually, I was thinking to myself, I can't actually remember when last um, I was only talking to librarians because
Yeah.
um, what we are talking about is a view of education that values the role of the library and the librarian.
Yeah.
The only thing that was different about that was that the article was in two parts, and the first part was aimed at colleagues outside of the library, And I think the interesting thing actually, the interesting thing that came out of working on that article with Lee and some of the feedback that she got is that colleagues who she spoke to about that first article are by and large sympathetic to and actually positive about an inquiry-based approach to teaching and learning
Okay.
that incorporates elements of direct, explicit instruction. However, they did not, by and large, view the librarian as a collaborator or playing a vital and leading role in the development and delivery of inquiry-based learning.
Because they think that they can do it themselves?
No, I think so. So this is a fair degree of speculation.
Yeah, yeah.
But my suspicion is that that is because librarians themselves aren't clear about the importance and value of inquiry and aren't clear about the leading role that they can and really ought to be playing in that. And I think
Okay.
some of that confusion comes from conflating inquiry with information literacy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think there are things to tease out of, and that was so that that was in no way based on widespread feedback. It was based on feedback from those people who Lee spoke to, and then on conversations around that we had. So that is my impression.
Yeah.
And
But
that is similar to the situation that we find ourselves in the UK.
because it is interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of, if a teacher is doing an inquiry project, and we know that it is happening in UK schools, even though they are A level and GCSE focused, there are still projects, especially in 7, 8, and 9 years. But it's interesting that actually, yeah, the library, just like when they're doing some kind of literacy project within schools, the library isn't the first port of call. And it's sort of changing that understanding or role of the school librarian is a difficult one, isn't it? Because even if you have teachers who are interested in literacy, interested in inquiry-based learning, they don't or automatically think of the library. And I also need to say that one of my sons, I have two sons who are teachers. One of them approached the librarian and asked, and there was no understanding of the concept of what that librarian could do for the history department. And that's sad, but that's about educating our librarians and supporting them and training them as much as educating and supporting our teachers, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So that was the interesting thing about the two articles was not that what we were trying to say was different. It was just helpful to view that from two different perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that the thing that was really, really interesting was that in a certain sense, with the teachers that Lee spoke with, there was a strong desire, but their view of and experience of the librarian didn't yeah, so their view of and experience of the librarian didn't make the librarian a natural ally in developing that. which then did, yeah, so that does reinforce the fact that we need to have a view of what education is, the role of inquiry in that kind of education, and then very definitely a clear understanding of our role and contribution, vital role and contribution in that, so that we then do become collaborators with classroom-based teachers on a different approach to teaching and learning.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. That's certainly something to be unpacked in the future. What were the other things that you wanted to talk about?
So secondly, I have, so for the School Librarian, which is the print journal of the UK School Library Association, I had been writing a series called Between the Library and the Classroom, Becoming Integral to the Educational Process. And that, so I stopped writing the series for TSL with the view to continuing the series online as an SLA blog.
Right.
So I have in fact now, so the first article has been published in the SLA blog. That's similar to the FOSIL group. Well, kind of. In order to comment on the piece that I've written, you need to be an SLA member, because that's in the members area in the forum. But what they are going to do is they are going to publish that as a general blog, so that it's visible on the website to anybody. And then if somebody wants to comment on it, they need to be an SLA member. But like I used to do with print, like I used to do with the print one, I have also put that one up on the FOSIL group website. So I'll also send you the link for that for the notes.
Yeah.
So that is already available publicly for people who aren't SLA members. And the reason why I mention that is just because,
keep going.
The reason why I mention that is because it was for a different format, for a different medium. I took the opportunity to really take a step back and in effect start again from scratch. So building a case from the ground up. So the first one was really just an introduction to explain the transition and to very, very briefly lay the groundwork. And then the second one, so I'm intending to do that every 2 months. The second one then is going to begin developing that first article in practical terms, but that is making a case for everything that we've discussed up until this point. And some of that will come out when we talk about the book.
So if anybody comes onto your website and is reading it, it's not necessarily about putting their thoughts down. If they have any questions or they don't understand something, that's the place to ask the questions, isn't it? Because actually, unless people understand what we're saying, it's a bit like our conversations here. I need to make sure I understand what we're talking about. And that is part of the learning journey, isn't it? So it would be really interesting to hear what people are thinking and the thoughts that they may be struggling with about all of this. So, let's open that discussion.
Yeah, so those, so in a certain sense, those are two different audiences, because there are people who will look at what is on the FOSIL group website who won't be SLA members.
Yeah.
So the intention is that it is publicly available on the SLA site, and for them to encourage discussion about that amongst their membership. And in the same way for us, anybody who's a member of the FOSIL group, which is free, if they want to discuss anything in the article on the FOSIL group website, they're more than welcome to do that. So I will discuss whatever people are interested in, either in the SLA forum or in the FOSIL group forum.
Absolutely. It's brilliant. It's great to have that opportunity. And next.
What I'll do is I'll just swap these two around, because the next point will lead into the book.
Okay,
But Jenny did just I was talking to Jenny this morning, and she just had two interesting insights to share, by way of encouragement.
okay.
So she is largely responsible for the Year 6 signature work inquiry.
Okay.
And that's quite interesting, because it involves a number of different departments or subjects. But as part of Express, so for all of our signature works, the Express part is really important, because it's an opportunity for us to celebrate less what students have done and more who they are in the process of becoming as engaged and empowered inquirers. So obviously there is a product, but actually it's a celebration of inquiry rather than work.
Yeah.
But so the Year 6s do various presentations, including a presentation. So a number of them do presentations in the primary school assembly.
Okay.
And was very interesting this week. Well, the beginning of this week, Jenny is doing some work with the Year 6 theology teacher, and she went into the class, and they were talking about the Sustainable Development Goals in relation to Catholic social teaching, because the signature works have a focus on living well in a world worth living in. So we use the SDGs to frame them.
Yeah.
And the really interesting thing is that there were a number of current Year 6 students who said that they had been so inspired by the work that last year's Year 6s had done, that they had spent the whole summer holiday beginning to imagine what it was that they were going to do, what their focus was going to be in their Year 6 signature work inquiry.
Fantastic.
So that was really, really powerful.
And unexpected, which is really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think having children excited about their learning and talking about their learning, that's quite powerful. The second thing is, because of the focus on living well in a world worth living in, we've made a number of community links. So a focus and outworking for some of the students' projects is connecting with local charities.
Right.
So yeah, one of the students, one of the teams, to cut a long story short, there is a tree planting. They managed to get a tree sponsored.
Okay.
And there's a big event coming up, involving various charities and local celebrities around the tree planting.
Okay.
And that was also just so because that work is authentic, it's not a gimmick.
Yeah.
Because it's authentic, there are real connections being established, real links being established. But that raises the profile of the work. It raises the profile of the library and the role of the library in that work.
Yeah.
So not just with students, also with colleagues, SLT, but increasingly also out into the community.
Yeah.
So that was just by way of encouragement
Yeah.
that it may take a long time. It may require quite a lot of work, but at some point it will begin to bear fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking about is giving inquiry and learning a purpose, which
Hmm.
is lovely. And actually, if they can genuinely see an outcome, then it's going to keep them going for the next one, isn't it? It's great. It's
And
lovely.
it's because we take them seriously. So we take them as inquirers seriously. The work that they do matters.
Yeah.
And it's not some trivial project that has no bearing on curricular content. The whole point about the signature work is that they are um, interdisciplinary in that they meaningfully involve work being done in different departments,
Yeah.
and it integrates it in a coherent and meaningful way,
Yeah. 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 That's fabulous.
which they find very exciting and powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's great. So, but that works across year groups as well, isn't it? Because you're doing that, like you've just been talking about year six, but you do these signature work.
Yeah, yeah. One. So we've got clearly identifiable signature work inquiries in year one, year two, year six, year nine, year 12.
Yeah.
And then the interesting thing is the year nine signature work inquiry, the uptake for the HPQ, the higher project qualification in year 10. We've got 8 doing it this year. And then, of course, the year 12, that's a very mini signature work inquiry because it is really just to try to help students readjust from a focus on GCSE exams to
Yeah.
thinking about their work and approaching their work differently in year 12.
Yeah.
But of course, that then leads into the EPQ.
Yeah.
And again, we haven't got this year's cohort yet. They are in the process of making decisions about whether they're going to do an EPQ or not. But the interest this year has been significantly greater than up until now.
Great. Brilliant. That sounds good.
Yeah.
And so we lead on nicely then
Yes.
to the book.
Yes. So just to kind of lead into the book, I had been working on a Synergy article. So Synergy is the journal of the School Library Association in Victoria in Australia.
Okay.
So they had asked me to write an article introducing their members to FOSIL, which I've done. And if you want, I can also include the link because that's on the FOSIL group website. So that was an introduction to FOSIL.
Yeah.
But then out of that, I was going to write a second article for them, which I didn't have time to do. But I had begun to work on that. And the reason why I mentioned that is both because we've got an inset coming up on the topic,
Right.
and it provides an introduction to the book.
Right.
But that inset that we're doing actually after half term is I've titled it Artificial Intelligence and the Atrophication of the Intellect.
Okay.
So that's going to give us an opportunity to revisit because we did start a discussion about AI in the
We
forum.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that quite a lot, as has Jenny. So it's an opportunity both to go back to that topic in the forum,
Yeah.
but also we should have something to share. We'll be able to share this presentation fairly soon because we have to do that after half term.
That works perfectly for me, Darryl, because I have 2 presentations coming up very soon, all about AI. So whatever you can share, I
Good.
will be grateful for.
So that really does lead into the book because I've been reading quite a lot of Jacques Maritain, who was a Catholic philosopher who was enormously influential in a number of different fields, but he made an incredible contribution to philosophy of education,
Right.
which we'll touch on when we get to the book. But I just wanted to start with a quotation. So in relation to this topic of AI, but also as a lead into the book. So he wrote, nothing is more important than the events which occur within that invisible universe, which is the mind of a person. And the light of that universe is knowledge. If we are concerned with the future of civilization, we must be concerned primarily with a genuine understanding of what knowledge is, its value, its degrees, and how it can foster the inner unity of the human being. This book has just arrived, The Degrees of Knowledge by Jacques.
Lots of reading to do there, Darryl. Yeah.
Yes. But so the reason why I say that is because it's these three things. So if we are concerned about the future of civilization, we have to have a deeper concern about what knowledge is, and how knowledge fosters the inner unity of the human being.
Yeah.
Now that is absolutely crucial, because what we're talking about is how inquiry brings this about.
Yeah.
And we already touched on that with the year 6 stuff, is taking students seriously as inquirers and their development as engaged and empowered inquirers.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the book. So we've now signed the contract with Bloomsbury Libraries Unlimited, and we are working to a deadline of 1st of September next year.
Wow, well done.
So so that's Barbara and I. We have our work cut out to us.
Yeah.
So what I thought is if I just very quickly touch on the 10 chapters in the book.
Yeah.
Just to give people a sense of what will be in the book, but also the logic,
right,
of the book, because basically we're making a case for everything that we have been talking about over the last year and more.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to try and pull all of that together and to develop it further. So chapter 1, inquiry and the purpose of education. And then the focus there is on how does inquiry enable a liberal education?
Right.
So I think the thing that's really important for us is that, and we've spoken about this before, is that as librarians, our primary concern shouldn't be the library. Our primary concern should be education.
Yeah.
And what kind of education values a library and the contribution of a library to that education.
Yeah.
So what is a liberal education? Understanding beyond knowledge, development of the whole child, the inner unity of the child, and the context for inquiry, educational, social, cultural, digital, and then specifically AI. So that's chapter 1.
Yeah.
Chapter 2, inquiry as conversation. And I think this is really important, because we've touched on this before, but we've never developed it fully or more fully. So why is inquiry more like a conversation than a research process? So the importance of questioning conversations with ourselves, with others, and the world that we find ourselves in. And then very importantly, an inquiry stance. It's out of that attitude of wonder and puzzlement that conversations begin.
Yeah.
And then to move into inquiry as a process. So what were the thought processes that drove the formation of the stripling model and the FOSIL model? So that's just an opportunity to reflect on the development of those models and their value.
Yeah.
Chapter 4, inquiry as an all-embracing concept. So what skills and responsibilities are embodied in inquiry, especially in this increasingly digital age? And that will include looking at multiple literacies, digital ethics, and social responsibility.
Yeah.
Chapter 5, whole child focus of inquiry. Why should we think of inquiry as a whole child approach to learning? So academic, social, emotional, and cultural growth, durable skills and attitudes, a continuum of skills, and then very excitingly, the portraits of an engaged and empowered inquirers at grades 2, 5, 8, and 12.
Yeah.
So Barbara is still got lots of interesting stuff to share there.
Fantastic.
Then chapter 6, priority skills and attitudes. So how can we make the teaching of inquiry more digestible and continual? So they were talking about the skill sets and subsets, and then a sketch of the continuum for PK to 12 for each phase of the inquiry process.
Yeah.
So trying to find ways into what is quite a large and complex body of work.
Yeah.
Chapter 7, developing school priorities for inquiry-based teaching and learning. And then very importantly, why there is no magic formula for teaching inquiry. So school-wide conversations, conversations with students and parents, schools and district goals and priorities, and buy-in from all stakeholders. Chapter 8, designing inquiry-based instruction. So the thing has a very practical focus. So what is the role of collaboration in building a school-wide culture of inquiry, collaborative conversations, integration with important content, an integrated approach to durable skills, incorporating skills from multiple attributes into the same instructional experience, example units, and model signature work inquiries. Chapter 9, teaching the conversations of inquiry. What guidelines and strategies lead to effective teaching of inquiry as conversation? The role of direct instruction, student agency, example lessons, assessment strategies, and graphic organizers to capture and provoke inner dialogue and sharing. And then chapter 10, broadening the conversations about inquiry. How do we create broad buy-in to teaching and learning through inquiry, awareness and advocacy conversations with administrators, classroom teachers, students, and parents?
Sounds amazing. What I really like, Darryl, is the fact that it goes back to that focusing on the whole child, and that inquiry is not just a thing that you do. It's the and if you look at, so I've been looking at a lot of schools' aims and objectives, and they all talk about, you know, the attributes of the child and the fact that, you know, we're trying to empower and support and engage and, you know, teach our students to talk effectively and have opinions and ideas. And this is all what FOSIL is around and based on, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. So just in relation to that, that was actually what was very interesting about the first part of the article that I wrote with Lee, because so one of the things that I've been looking at and addressed explicitly in that article is all schools make these claims about the kind of child that they are producing.
Yeah.
Yet I would be very surprised if many of them, possibly any, can demonstrate how what it is that they do actually achieves that, and specifically how what they do in the classroom. So I think there is a massive disconnect between what a school claims its aims and objectives are,
Yeah.
and how what it does, particularly in the classroom, actually achieve that. And the case that we are making is that because inquiry isn't about stuff, it's about the inquirer and developing an engaged and empowered inquirer or learner. Inquiry understood properly and implemented properly, done properly, actually achieves the goals of the classroom as well as the aims of the school.
Yeah, so it's perfect. And I love the fact that you are including examples of things that are working, that there are graphic organizers available, ideas for lessons. It sounds like the perfect tool for anybody who is thinking of moving forward with inquiry but not quite sure how at this point is going to open the door. So I'm excited for one.
Yeah, so are we.
so yeah, it sounds like we've got lots of work to do.
Mm,
And it is important that we are having these conversations with librarians as well as teachers,
yeah.
and actually empowering them to think beyond the four walls of the library that they're sat in. I talk to a lot of librarians who feel isolated. We're offering an opportunity for them in particular, these people that want to be doing more, who want to be recognized as professionals, that we're beginning to build up the tools that they need to open those doors. And I just hope that they will join us in this crusade, if that's what we're going to call it.
And I think, you know, to sum all of what we've been speaking about up, and that's why we chose the title of the book so deliberately. We put an awful lot of thought into how to approach the book. And by way of encouragement to anybody who is interested, regardless of whether they are optimistic or pessimistic,
Yeah,
it's about conversation.
yeah,
And the conversations that we are having with ourselves, the conversations that we're having with each other, and the conversations that we're having with our colleagues outside the classroom. And if the conversations that we are having with colleagues outside of the classroom is the development of students as engaged and empowered inquirers, independent learners, and the focus of our conversation with those colleagues is how to achieve that educationally. So the kind of education that aims to do that and brings that about, then they begin to view us as allies and collaborators.
yeah, yeah.
So we've got to change the conversations that we're having.
Absolutely. And hopefully this is the start of those
Mm,
conversations. Other people are more than welcome to join in.
absolutely.
Our doors are open. Right, so I'm going to bring this recording to a finish. Then want to say that the FOSIL group website is free and open to all. We hope that you will take some time to check out this website, which includes resources and, more importantly, a forum where you can discover what others are doing and join in the conversation. The link to the website can be found in the show notes below. We hope you've enjoyed listening to our FOSIL podcast. As always, if you'd like to comment on anything you've heard, we'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss out on future discussions. Thank you very much for listening.